Okay, release notes review 5.3, another big one, a lot of e-commerce related stuff in this. So I'll try and go over it as quick as possible so we can get through all this, and I'll leave the bugs for you to look at the end if you want to look at the bugs. Okay, so first one is module duplication. So we now have the ability to duplicate an entire module from the Pro plan. I think we only have it in the e-commerce plan. So just in case you didn't know, like let's say we have a custom module. We go into settings, and using this icon here, you can duplicate the entire module setup. You can do that with any module from the Pro plan. Product data JSON HTML, so that's just being inserted automatically into a product layout. I think that's required by the JavaScript for e-commerce. So that'll be inserted automatically, you don't need to worry about that. Parent-child module links in the module settings. So this is particularly useful for parent-child module setup. So if you nest any custom modules together, or if you're using blogs, events, galleries, FAQs, they all have a parent-child module relationship. So if we look at blogs, for example, and you wanted to customize the settings, when you go to the settings, you're actually editing the settings for that parent module, which generally isn't what you want to do. You want to add custom properties to the actual blog posts, which is the child module. And before, there wasn't an easy way to get to that. So now we have this toggle at the top, basically. So we're currently on the parent blog, but you can switch to blog posts, and that just throws you into the settings for the blog post. So now you can actually edit the settings for the posts rather than the parent module, which was just sort of the group. Okay, search keyword field. So we now have that in the import export file for any module. So we can import and export the search keywords. Now downloadable products. So there's been a bit gone into this. So we now have the following fields in the products module. So for downloadable products, we have enable shipping. So you can set enable shipping to true or false if you want a product to influence or to have shipping applied. So obviously important for a downloadable product because it probably wouldn't attract shipping. So you can turn that off. They're going to be set to true though by default, just because that's the way that they're currently working. And we have a field for is downloadable product, so we can turn a product into a downloadable product. Then we have, of course, the product file field, so we can upload a file so that can be downloaded. And this just says here that it's going to be stored in a folder that's not accessible via like the front end URL or any typical URL, so it's kind of secured. Okay, we'll have obviously the admin will have the ability to download it in the admin and also upload the file, obviously, and it'll show the file name. We can replace the file, and it will prompt if we're overwriting, and if you ever change the product from a downloadable product to not being downloadable, then it removes the access to the file as well. So more on downloadable products. So now there's a new API that the system will use to retrieve that file. It's doing this by passing the actual line item from the order to the API. So it checks to see if it can download the file based on the actual order. And if they're tracking how many downloads or anything like that, it's done per order, which is good. Then we have shipping options logic. So obviously we want to hide shipping options if all the products in the shopping cart have enabled shipping as false. or they're all downloadable products or gift vouchers, basically. Again, with downloadable products, so we have the downloadable link is now accessible via Liquid as well. So we can put that into like the thank you page, invoice, workflow, supplier emails, etc. So basically anywhere where that order Liquid object is available, it's going to be included in that. So we'll be able to use that dynamically. And the system pages for those items are going to be automatically updated or have been updated. So the necessary markup is included now. So if you have any custom pages, you may need to adjust those yourself. And then counting downloads logic. So we now have a max downloads allowed for that downloadable item. So like I mentioned before, we're tracking it via the order line item. So if you set a maximum of 10, it's going to track 10 downloads for that particular order. It goes into the details of that here on the logic that it uses to allow that. A downloadable link in the admins. So just saying that there's a downloadable link for the file that's going to be shown in the admin. You can download the file directly from the admin, from that order in the admin as well. Okay, so Stripe customers in advanced payment logic. So it looks like we're now passing the customer email to Stripe, so that I guess it can set up the customer in Stripe and set the tokens for their cards and payments up within Stripe. And so I think there's some logic there that says if the customer is returning with the same card details, it'll put all that under the same customer within Stripe. So I guess it manages it. That's going to be better for managing your customers in Stripe as well if you use Stripe in that way. We have attribute and attribute options ordering. So this is great. So if we're looking at a product, not sure if I have attributes set up. You can see here that we can actually order these now, the actual groups themselves, but also if we add options to this, we can reorder the options as well. So this is fantastic, especially coming from BC where you could not adjust these once they were in, and that was a nightmare to manage. So this is a great improvement. And just too, it's noting that the order that you put these in here actually is reflected in the Liquid as well, so that's how they'll render out on the front end. So that's really good too. Show number of products in all shopping carts. So now see how many products are in any cart sessions that may be in play at any time. So if you're tracking inventory, that is. So we turn inventory control on. We can see here we've got a field added to shopping cart. So if someone adds 2 products to the cart, then you'll see a 2 in here. Until, of course, that card expires or they purchase it, and then that'll be adjusted. So that can be a good indicator to see how, like the interest on the product, or anticipate any stock problems. Okay, now we've got a link to the order on the gift voucher. So in e-commerce, when you're editing a gift voucher, I couldn't actually see this in my one, but I think, so when you edit a gift voucher, apparently near the balance, there's meant to be a link to the order. I think in this case, this gift voucher was created manually, so there's no order attached to it. I'm guessing if it's purchased through the cart, then there'll be an order assigned to it, so you'll be able to link from this screen to the order. And in a similar way, we have a link added to form submissions and event bookings. So CRM, so form submissions. This is a checkout, so this should have, so up here we can see we've got order and link take us to the actual order. So just making all that a little bit more easy to navigate around. Daily reoccurring subscriptions, so now we can set recurring subscriptions to daily instead of just the monthly and yearly, I think they were. And there's just a little note here that I think they're like adding 5 hours onto that just to sort of give timing for payments to process and things like that. So if you're using a daily recurring, that might be of importance. Order management upgrade. So we're splitting form submissions and booking subscriptions in the orders detail page. So if we take a look at orders, so depending on the type of order, so let's say I've got an event purchase here, we have a new tab for the event booking, and if it's, let's say, a checkout, we have a tab for the form submission, so you can see the data in the form. So I think that's what that is referring to. Grouped products, form improvements. So I'm not entirely sure what this one was about, but it's saying remove description field from the grouped product object. So I think when you have grouped products, it was passing all the description body along in the liquid when that probably isn't needed. So I think now they're just passing the name, just so you can generate that list or link to the group product, rather than having all that extra data come along with it. Okay, and we've got the addition of more tax values in the order line and the extended tags, like the tags that have the HTML along with it. So there's a whole heap of detail in here. If you click through to these links, it shows you the detailed spreadsheet on how they're calculating that, and all the equivalent tags from BC to Treepl and a whole bunch of information. So there's a lot in there if you want to take a look at that. But basically we're just getting a whole heap more tags for all the tax related pricing and HTML output and the percentage and everything like that. So got a lot more flexibility in how we can output tax. The second part of that is around the shipping prices as well, so a lot more control and a lot more variations of the tag for shipping and the shipping tax, percentage and all that sort of stuff. So along the same lines as the tax, we have a lot more control over that now. So a whole bunch of new tags we have access to. Okay, out of stock hide products. So if the product in the inventory tab has out of stock, then we hide the product, and also they won't be shown with any filtering or any search, won't display that product. So essentially it disables that product from displaying on the front end. Okay, and then they've done a bit of a review on the inventory numbers. So again, if I just jump back to that, go into my socks. So again, if you're using inventory, just how all these numbers work, a bit of a description here so you can go through basically for any products that are on pre-order and added to the cart that we talked about before. This just goes into the whole logic of how that works, so you can read through that. The orders submission flow, so a bit of a rework on that as well. They're saving the form submission data to Stripe as some metadata, and then that's sent back if the payment's successful. So I guess that's just a way of not processing the information into Treepl unless the payment's successful. That's what I'm getting from that. Then add shop settings page. and format settings options. So now we have a whole heap more controls in our settings, miscellaneous. So they've done a bit of rework in here. We've got some different sections here for the shop settings, recapture settings, the admin panel settings, and some CMS assets management as well. So we'll get into that in a minute. So that's all this stuff here. And the second part of this is the customization for currency and formatting for prices and that. So if we go to our domains and currency and format, when we add or edit an item, we can actually tick this on here, use custom formatting, and just go to town with how you want that to be formatted. So pretty fine-grained control on how you want to do that. And there's a whole bunch of information here on where they got the formatting from and what all that means. So take a look at that. Country list management for shopping cart. So we've got the ability to control which countries will show up in the drop-down in the shopping cart. So I think when you're selecting the shipping, and possibly too in the checkout form, I'm not sure, but so where we have the component to list countries, countries drop down, we can add a parameter to this. We've got an example down here, so we can add allowed countries, and then it's a comma separated list of whatever countries you want to support, and the rest will be omitted from the drop down. And this has also been added to the component manager. So we'll just get to, oops, let's go to a page. So the components box under e-commerce, shopping cart country select. Now we can actually choose the allowed countries from here as well, and that will generate the tag for us. Okay, a nice editor color picker. There was a Z-index issue, so we've just increased that so it doesn't hide behind other objects. Offline credit card payment systems page. So there's a note with this. It's been, because there was some confusion with the name of offline credit card payments, now been renamed to defer order payment. So that's probably what you'll see in the admin going forward. So basically this allows the functionality to not take a payment, or if you're not taking a payment at the time of checkout, the order can sit basically pending a payment, and you can send a link to the customer that will allow them to then go and pay an outstanding order that's in the system. So basically it's a way of processing payment for an order that is pending payment, so after the fact of placing the order. And basically it works the same as any payment form. There's a new system form that's in place, new system pages, new system email that goes around all this. So yeah, this item here talks about the email. So you can go in and edit that just as you would any other system email. And then it goes into more detail here about the flow of how this all works, which you can read through. But yeah, basically it's the same as other forms. You can set a custom redirect if you want to. It supports JSON response, so you can submit via AJAX. Yeah, basically all the same sort of setup. Password change in the CRM. So now we have the ability to update a contact's password manually. So if we're looking at a record, once we click edit, we can see the password fields available, and we can simply just override or place a password in. But there is a note that when you do that, it does send an email out. So there's a password change system email there that's new, which you can of course customize, but that'll be sent out to the CRM record if the admin changes the password, and it notifies them that the admin has changed the password, and it actually sends the password to them via email. So, okay, we now have the ability to bulk delete booking subscriptions. I think I've got some in here. Let's have a look. I've only got one, but basically if you select multiple items, you can delete them. And there was a today button added to any date pickers. So let's see. I might just go to the screenshot here, it might be easier. So basically, it just gives you an easy way of putting in the current date in any date pickers that are in the admin. So there'll be a today button, just so that makes that a little bit more streamlined. Payment fields appearance. So the payment fields, like for the credit card fields that are added to any payment forms, are supplied basically from the gateway, and currently we didn't really have a way of accessing those or styling them. So where the gateways provide the ability to modify the styles of those, we'll have access to those in the admin. So when we're adding a payment gateway, so if there's one in here or when you're adding one, we now have this appearance tab. So I think depending on the gateway, it will depend on what options you have. But with Stripe, we have a bunch of colors and font sizes and things like that we can control just to make that suit your site. Then we have a case insensitive URL redirect parameter. So now when you're setting redirects, we have the ability to turn off, basically turn off case sensitivity. So the example here is, so basically if it's set to true, which it is by default, then the case will be ignored. So it's case insensitive. So any case combinations will result in the redirect. But if it's not ticked, then if you're coming from a site that you're migrating that had case-sensitive URLs, then obviously you want to try and maintain, or you need to maintain that case sensitivity in case you had other redirects that were the same name but different case, so you can control how they redirect. Okay, moving on, control default styles and scripts. So now we have the ability to omit the CMS assets for certain pages. So like we have here, the main CSS, e-commerce CSS, reCAPTCHA scripts, payment scripts, all that stuff that's automatically injected if the system needs those on a page for any reason. We can actually tell the page not to load those. You can do this globally, so there's a global setting, so I think it's miscellaneous. Down the bottom here we can say you just didn't want to load any of them, say you're adding them in manually yourself under your own conditions, and you could turn them all off and the system won't ever insert them. Or we can do it on a template basis, so on a content template. Oops. We now have this extra tab here to control how whether they're enabled or not. So let's say on the checkout page, you want to enable the e-commerce.js because that's needed, but you want to turn off the CSS because you're going to add your own and you don't want that loading. So we can control that per content template. Okay, reapply folder detail instead of the page detail layout. So I think there must have just been an issue here with the detail layout assigned to page folders. But anyway, that seems like more of a bug fix. Okay, so there's some adjustments to the money filters. So we had set money format and set number format filters in Liquid, where we had, if I might just go to the docs for this, because let me see if I can bring this in. So we had, so let's say money format. So there was a parameter that we can add to this, force it to use a particular domain setting. If you have multiple domains that are using different money formats or number formats, you could force a number to be of a particular domain rather than the default domain that you're currently looking at. And this was previously by the setting ID, which was a really long ID that you had to sort of extract out of the admin, so it was a bit hard to get to. But now we can use the name of the setting as well. So when you create the currency setting under your domain and give it a name, you can use that name in here as well as the ID. So it just makes it a bit more user-friendly. Add URL to the order line. So this doing some adjustments to the system pages. So for shopping cart and the invoice, it's going to wrap the product name with a link back to the product. New file type, DWG extension is being allowed, so we can upload files of that extension to the server. Order migration, so I think the system is going through and migrating any old orders processed under the old way of processing to the new advanced payment flow. So just moving those over so they're compatible, I guess. Bring those in. This .order object in workflow emails. So now we'll have a bit more control with displaying the order information in workflows like we would do in the invoice email. Add to cart. Parameter for the button text. So in your product list or detail layouts, we would put in an add to cart component to render the add to cart button or the buy now buttons. And if you wanted to edit the text on that button, you would have had to go in and created your own custom layout. Now there's a quick and easy way to just adjust the button label text. If you add an extra parameter called button name, and then you can put in the new text that you want the button to take on. Okay, type media module item upgrade. So when you're selecting a media file from anywhere in the admin slider, this should have an image. Okay, so for example, this image here, when you use the media manager, it will go to the folder or where this current image is located. So images teams, and we're in images teams. So it will jump straight there, which is really handy. Otherwise, it will just go to the root if there's no image or it can't find the folder or anything like that. Modify a shopping cart object. So we've added the e-commerce ID object property to the shopping cart object. Previously there wasn't any ID for the actual product in there, so this is the e-commerce item ID is the actual product ID. And we're also adding the images property, the image property to the options in the shopping cart object. So when the product's added to the shopping cart, you will have details on that product and all the attributes, so all the attribute options that were selected, and it will also show the path for any images if the attributes have images assigned to them. So this is handy for, there's a bit of a use case listed here, but if you want to show the images in the shopping cart of what the customer has selected, there might be color swatches or completely new product images based on their selection. So you can carry those images through to the shopping cart. Remove product from cart data attribute selector. So previously the shopping cart JavaScript was relying on the line items to be placed in a table. So when you removed product from the cart, it was looking for a table row to remove. So the JavaScript's been updated now, so it's just going to look for the data attribute. So you could put that on a div or whatever. If you restructure your markup, you don't have to rely on tables now. Rebuild the module after import. So if you import anything to a module, it's going to do a rebuild. I guess that's referring to the index. So there was an issue with, so all the like HTML extended properties for like price HTML or tax HTML that has the HTML with it, there was some issues with the decimal places in the pricing. So that's now following the settings that you have in place for that domain, the currency settings. So add paginate items parameter. So a new parameter to do with pagination, basically enable pagination. Let me see if I can get an example of this. So basically on any module, once we're constructing the component, we now have this option here. So we used to have display pagination, which would turn pagination on, but there's also an enable pagination, which is on by default, but you can turn it off, and you get this enable pagination false added to the component. So this is required because there was an issue if you have multiple components listing, or I think from the same source, listing in multiple places on a page, and you had pagination on one of them, when you went to a different page for that pagination, it would paginate or change the listing of all the other components as well. So basically this disables pagination from happening on those other duplicate components, if that makes sense. The order payment. We go to order and go into an existing order. Under the payments tab, we're now seeing total cost and pending cost. So just showing that a little clearer. We now have the ability to set 12 or 24-hour time formatting on any date pickers. So again, in the miscellaneous settings for the admin, we can enable 24-hour date pickers, so throughout the admin, wherever there's a date picker. Okay, so we're into the bug list here, so I might let you review that, but just a bunch of fixes, a whole heap of fixes, which is good, and feel free to look at those. Okay, so that's 5.3. Thank you.